Well, here's the subject of today's video. We're looking at my little 16-inch diagonal OptiQuest monitor. Maximum resolution on this one's 1280 by 1024. Nothing spectacular, obviously. Like most everything else these days, yeah, it's made in China. Probably about at least 5 years old. Truth be known, a couple years ago, my next door neighbor actually gave this to me. He's got some rental housing, and one of his tenants moved out and decided they didn't want it, so they left it behind. I've really made good use out of it. I found out that it works perfect and you want to get a couple quick jobs done and don't want to fire up the big TV as the main monitor. So I've used it for 2 or 3 years now. A couple of weeks ago, I went to turn it on and noticed it was dim and flickering, and this continued for a little while. And then the next time I turned it on, it basically flashed a screen on me at once for about half a second and then went dark. And that was it. It would flash that partial screen on me just briefly, and that's all I could ever get out of it. Okay, time to take a look at it or throw it away. So here we go. Obviously, the first thing on the list of things to do is find a way to get it apart. After experimenting a while, I've noted that there are probably two basic catches for these things that hold plastic housings together. Your first mission, of course, is to turn it over and look at it thoroughly to make sure there are no screws even hidden behind labels somewhere. As I said, there seem to be two arrangements for holding little plastic housings together. The first is basically kind of like a fish hook that grabs a hold of a ridge in the back of the monitor. These are fairly easy to get apart. All you got to do is find out where they're located and stick a little knife in there and then pry down slightly once you see which housing is the front housing and which housing is the rear housing. The second one, which this one used, is kind of a loop and catch hook arrangement. There's really no way I can find to release these, so what you really have to do is just take a screwdriver and pry them apart. And then there are obviously going to be several of them that break. You just hope you don't break all of them, so the housing will at least go back together. I took note there's about a 1/2 inch wide slot at the bottom right of the monitor, so by starting here with a flat blade screwdriver and slowly prying things apart and working around with a knife ahead of the screwdriver, I managed to get 3 sides off. The bottom did not want to come out, so I decided to leave well enough alone. Of course, all I had to do was just pivot the electronics forward. All the buttons that are there are right there in the very front of the monitor on the bottom too, so that was something I didn't want to get into for fear of breaking the buttons. Well, here's the main control board for the monitor, and after looking this one over pretty closely, I can't find any signs of distress on it, so it's time to move on to the power board, which is underneath the cover you see to your left. Well, after pulling the cover back, now I'm starting to see some signs of distress. Looks like these two capacitors, and this capacitor, and this capacitor are all blown. If you note, they've got a nice little dome shape on all of them. They should be flat across the tops. Well, now it's time to move along and take the board out. There are 4 screws and these 2 sets of connectors, and the board comes right out after unplugging a little 6-pin connector where the power board powers the main board. Now that I've got the power board out, I can make a more close inspection of the capacitors, and yep, they're all definitely gone. At least it didn't take out the big boy, but it did take these 4 out. Well, a capacitor is a capacitor is a capacitor, huh? Well, not quite. As you can see from this list of parameters, there are quite a few things you need to take a look at. In my particular case, I usually go with whatever's installed on the board and then see if I can improve upon it as far as maximum life and higher temperature operation. Outside of capacitance value and voltage rating, quite often you can get a lot better capacitor by going to a higher temperature rating capacitor. It's going to last a lot longer in the application. And then obviously, depending on PC board considerations, diameter may be a big factor as well as lead spacing. That's why when I'm replacing stuff, I usually go off to a supplier like DigiKey instead of go hunting on eBay. On eBay, you never know for sure what you're getting. Going to DigiKey, you know you're getting exactly what you need. And then strangely enough, DigiKey is going to probably be the cheaper alternative as long as you've got a few other things besides some 50-cent capacitors to buy. So yeah, I usually save up a little minor list, and whenever I get something like this, I'll order the things I've been thinking about ordering and then order the things I actually need, like these little 4 capacitors. Again, we're talking $2 in parts here, so this definitely isn't going to break you, but that $8 shipping charge will definitely catch your attention. I actually needed 3 470s and 1 330, but I ordered 1 spare of each. just for electronic future considerations for testing things, as well as just in case one happened to be bad or I messed one up soldering it in. Well, I'm sure a couple of you in the comments are going to tell me, hey, you'd be better off if you did a little solder before desolder. And you're right. I agree. It does make things come out easier. But in this case, like I say, it was just going to be where I had to desolder 2 legs. So I figured I'd go ahead and muddle through it with just desoldering without the resoldering bit. And for those of you that haven't heard that, there are videos out there, but it does make desoldering much easier if you add a little new solder before you try to desolder something. And now here's my 4 bad capacitors. Time to put the new ones in. First thing to do is go ahead and use the desoldering tool to pull any solder out of the through holes. Then go ahead and reinsert the new capacitors in their places, making sure the polarity is taken care of. Now just solder the new capacitors in place and trim the leads back to the board. Last thing I'll do, of course, is go through and do a thorough check to make sure there are no solder bridges anywhere. And now it's time to put the monitor back together. Here's a shot of the repaired board with the brand new capacitors soldered in place. And finally, of course, a shot of the board reinstalled in the monitor. And here's a money shot showing the repaired monitor, showing the old dead monitor in the shot. And yeah, it works just fine. It's back just the way it was. Colors look good, resolution looks good, like a brand new monitor. Well, I hope you found this interesting and useful. If you did, consider giving me a like and definitely consider subscribing. I've got quite a few more projects on the way I believe you're going to be interested in. Until our paths cross again, take care. Have a great day.